Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Welcome to Say Grace, where we unpack all things hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I'm excited to welcome my new guest during the Charleston Wine and Food Festival weekend sessions. I'm going to read your bio. I am thrilled to welcome Andrew Zimmern to the show. Andrew Zimmern is an Emmy and four-time James Beard Award-winning chef, creator, producer, and storyteller who has built a career on the belief that food tells the world's most important stories. Through his acclaimed shows, Bizarre Food, The Zimmern List, and Family Dinner, he's explored how food can bridge divides and inspire change. Beyond television, he founded Intuitive Content and Passport Hospitality, authored 5 books, and co-created the Emmy-nominated series Hope in the Water. As a global ambassador for the UN Food Program and the Nature Conservancy, he continues to champion sustainability, fight hunger, and advocate for cultural understanding. Andrew, welcome to Say Grace.
Thanks, buddy.
Good to see you.
That was a weird feel. It's always strange, but that was especially weird hearing you read my bio, because I thought to myself, wow, that guy sounds really interesting.
Right,
and I'm like,
right.
and I'm like, oh, that's me. And I actually wondered, because before we started recording, we were talking about being the old guy in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I have so many other things I want to do. You know, I'm
Yes.
an idea lab, and I'm an action tank inside. And I'm like, I better get busy.
Do you feel like you're running out of time a little bit? I have
Yes.
that. I have
Yes.
that. Like,
Well, it gets worse then, because I
Oh,
didn't
shit.
get it until I was like 61, you know, and I'm a good bit older than you. But what happened is people started passing away who were younger than me.
yes.
And then the algorithms, I stop and open up accounts that have like cool little spiritual sayings and
Right.
dogs and expensive collectible cars. And so the algorithm, literally for like the next day, that's all that's sent my way. And I must have clicked on something about longevity and physical wellness and things like that. We're involved in a project. My company produces the Dan Buettner podcast, and Dan created the Blue Zones amongst many other things. And his podcast focuses on those issues. So I clicked on a couple of things, and I was looking at some of the clips that we had posted for him on social, and I read something that said the average American man lives to the age of 74. And I had just turned 64. And I was like, do I only have 10 Christmases left or 10 Thanksgivings? Like, no way.
Right.
No way. And I had always reminded people, as someone who you know, had several startovers in life, a lot of which I threw back at the universe and said, go fuck yourself. I don't want to start over.
Right.
And one where I finally said, yeah, okay, I'm willing. Let's start over. You know, thanks for the opportunity, universe. I will take you up on the start over card. And I'm like, wow. If I only have 10 Thanksgivings, like, where do I convince the family not to do the turkey and stuffing? That I sort of want to change up every once in a while. They're always like, well, we could do that at Hanukkah or Christmas. Like, Thanksgiving is like a set thing. And I'm like, okay, that's great. but do I only have 10 more of those with those people that I love the most? If I only have 10 years, what do I want to prioritize? And everyone says, because time is the only thing no one can buy, you can't get more of it. That is
Amen.
The thing. So how you spend it is very important and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And, my family has their vote. They're like, yeah, because I talk about this with people. I mean, I'm an open book,
right?
Thanks to my start over card. That was part of the deal. Okay, you're going to be transparent with people. I'm like, okay. The start over card came with rules, apparently, that I was not aware of. Very willing to go by.
Ditto.
Because I wanted to start over so badly. But what it really is going to happen, because people always say, and it's the easy thing, it's the Hallmark greeting card for 2025 for people who are into this kind of thinking and want to discuss these types of things,
right,
like you and I do.
Yes.
We're those types of people.
We are.
Everyone says, well, I'm going to, something? I'm cashing it all in. I'm going to take my family and we're going to move to Italy. And I found that, we're going to sell our home. We're going to just cash out everything. And I found someplace in Tuscany, someplace in Sardinia,
right,
for a couple $100,000 that's kind of crumbling a little bit, but ready to move into.
Yeah. Mine is Florence, by the way.
Let's restore. Let's do the garden. Let's do and by the way, it could be any country. And
right,
let's just really live together. And, some of my mentors and stuff say, that's great. What is the first week like? And the first week is really romantic. It's walks at sunset. It's shopping at the little local market and getting, where they've harvested wild artichokes, and I roast them over the fire, and we make a fabulous dinner, and there's a fireplace because it's a little chilly at night in this old, crumbling but beautiful place that we bought. And after a week of this pure bliss, it starts to feel a little bit like a mausoleum. And I start to think to myself, boy, you know what this town needs? Like a tiny little place, like that just makes, because that beef from that local guy, I could get it and grind it. And like a little hamburger spot. Everyone here loves hamburgers. They don't have one. There's a couple places that make a version of one that's pretty like, I could do like a little hamburger spot kind of thing. And oh my God, in the time that I'm not doing that, I could write sort of, an American cashes it all in, moves to Italy book. And, we're only an hour away from the city. I could do like a store thing and do appearances because, my old show, Orari da Gustare, The Horrors of Eating, which is what they call bizarre foods in Italy. Like, I know that's like 8 shows ago, but it airs every day here in Italy. I could take, and the next thing I know, I'm an American working in Italy as much as I'm working now, maybe more. That's what I do. So the reality is I have to do a better job at this stage in my life at accepting the fact and being open about it with the people around me, because a lot of my friends are retired. Literally, like this year is the year that's my friends group from childhood. 2 or 3 of them are all like, yeah, I'm sold everything and we're living here, like we're done. And I have to accept the fact that I'm not one of those people.
Neither am I.
And my family has accepted that I'm a die in the South. I have no plans on doing that anytime soon, but it's good. Like whatever it is, I will slow down.
Right.
But I still have too many things I want to do.
Amen.
If I left this earth and didn't build the best delicatessen on planet Earth, I would get to wherever we go after this, and Grandma Zimmern would be there just shaking her head, and I could see her mouthing the word schmuck. So there's certain things I want to do.
You heard it here first. Deli.
Deli
from Andrew Zimmern.
So, and there's, I got 3 or 4 projects over in Africa that I'm trying to get off the ground with, UN, World Bank, the group called Alta Sea, a whole bunch of other players, Women's Seafood Cooperative in Zanzibar, prove out a couple of economic concepts to kind of lift up, that continent. Hunger in America is genocidal, in my opinion. Yeah. And people say that's a strong word. And I'm just like, well, look at the secondary definition. I mean, it's like we have the money. We have the distribution systems. We have literally everything. We could, if we chose to, could statistically eliminate hunger in America. 100%. It would take about 7 weeks, according to, very serious experts who I happen to have access to. But the reason it's so fast is that we actually have the food, and we have the ability to get it to the places where people can pick it up. Yep. Who need it.
Right.
Because most of them are going there anyway.
Right.
And we can start an AmeriCorps job description for people who want to deliver it to them. We have so many splinter groups, thousands all over the United States doing it. Municipalities, towns, states. You mobilize those people, and it's like it's 7 weeks. It's done. There are no more hungry people in America, but we're condemning people, some of whom will die, to a situation that's pointless, that's genocidal, and I don't understand it. So I got a lot of things to do. There's a lot of work yet to be done. And I have a big project that I'm on the board of Giving Kitchen. And
Jen Heiniger, good buddy.
Yep. And, something I'm really proud of. I've worked with them for a long time, and I was, grateful to be asked to join their board of directors. And I have a couple projects cooking over there to sort of, to help people in different categories. There are people who, I don't think want to die an alcoholic death, but will if they don't get help. Yeah. So figuring out that, I think I've figured out a way to help a lot of people, like a big move there. So I've got that going on. And I mean, shit, that doesn't include the things that I'm doing already. So I don't have time to go away anywhere and do that.
And you don't have time to grow old.
Yeah, it's a crazy feeling. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there listening in their 20s, 30s, 40s who just can't relate at all. And I get that, because when I heard someone say those things, I couldn't relate at all. I'm like, I'm 30. I'm invincible. I mean, I have, quote, my whole life ahead of me. And we all lost a very close friend the year before last in James Kent. Yeah, and and then Charles Fan dropped dead at 54, something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot. And these were 2 people, and the reason I picked them out amongst others is extremely fit, doing all the things, eating right, doing everything right. There was no secret thing. There was, nothing bad. They were called to another place at a young age. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this really, life is really seconds and inches. If you don't make a lot out of every single day, you are missing out. And the older you get, the more you regret a lot of the stuff that you did that wasted time, right? I don't regret the mistakes I made. I learned from them. I don't regret the only 2 things that I regret in my life, even though I do a lot to make up for it. One is having hurt people, which happens a lot less now. Yep. But I'm still a human being and make mistakes. But I caused a lot of upset the first 30 years of my life. So I do regret that, even though I've done a lot of work on that, and gone out and sought out people that, from my past that I know I hurt and wounded really badly, and done my best to make those situations right. so I guess over the last 34, 35 years, since I sobered up, I just regret any time that I've wasted. And I wasted a lot of time. I wasted a whole decade. I mean, I don't really remember the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm told I had a really good time.
Exactly. There's pictures of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it was, certainly for me a lost decade. And I'm like, some people are like, oh yeah, I slept in last Wednesday. That was a mistake. It's like, I never saw an episode of Seinfeld. I mean, right. It's just like, and it's jokey, but it's really true. I mean, the 80s were a blur. I did a lot of stuff.
Right.
Some, not all bad.
Right.
But yeah, it's growing old is a weird thing. In my head, I feel like I'm 30.
Me too.
And sometimes I go up and talk to people because I think I'm 30, and they look at me like, and I can tell after like 5 seconds, yeah, wrong group. Like, yeah. Who's this old man?
Who's the old guy? When you got sober, I got sober in 2001.
Yep.
And I came out, I was GM in a restaurant here in town. I didn't know anybody else who was sober in the business. And you've been sober longer than me. I'm not sure how, 30?
34.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, now we're all talking about mental health and we're all fully engaged.
Lots of people are open about it.
Yeah. What was that like for you? Were you in New York at the time?
Well, I
went to Hazleton.
I was in New York.
Okay.
I was homeless the last 13 months, living in an abandoned building down on Sullivan Street, which right now it's super chic.
Right.
I mean, around the corner is Bellato's.
Right.
There's movie stars that own brownstones there. There was, there's some fabulous, like French high-end women's store on the ground floor of the building that I used to live on the second floor in. That was, it had cement casements instead of windows there. It was just open to the elements. There was a bottle gang. I drank at a version of the Blarney Stone. For anyone who's been to New York, the Blarney Stone is a shot and beer bar. But this was a mock Blarney Stone that was open. They served till 4 a.m. They literally hosed the place out. So the floor was always reeking of wetness, and wood rot, and beer,
right,
and piss.
Yeah. I know that smell.
Old people and just, the worst. And when I say old people, I mean that they could be 30, but people about to die.
Right.
Dying, but they didn't know it. Some who did know it. And it was around the corner from the Port Authority, and it was near an apartment that I had convinced my father to buy for me. Chris Farley lived in that building. Oh, wow. I would see him at 5 a.m. We'd look at each other, nod. Years later, we were in treatment. We were in a halfway house together, actually, which was sort of funny. And he was like, Andrew? And I'm like, Chris, how you doing? But I wanted so badly to make something of myself. And when I realized that my drugs and alcohol truly were the only barrier to getting everything I wanted in life, that when I finally admitted to my innermost self that was my largest problem, instead of giving it up, I said, fuck it. I'm a loser. I'm not giving up my drugs and alcohol. And
I said the same thing.
I wound up, living in this abandoned building on Sullivan Street. The bottom. I met someone at this. His name was AJ. I'll never forget him. Bearded, toothless. He kind of ran stuff at the bar.
Okay.
And when they closed for 2 hours to clean up before opening up again at 7 a.m., we would go around the back, and there was an alley in those days in behind it, and we would sit there, and someone always had a bottle, and you threw in $1 or $2, and everyone shared that and kind of sat there and just shared this bottle. And one night I showed up at the bar with the duffel bag because the sheriff of New York had evicted me from the non-payment at the bank, all this other stuff. And I just had all my stuff went to a rental place in New York that I just never paid on for that year. I wound up being sold for pennies on the pound, all the things of my life. And I had this duffel bag of dirty clothes, and they said, we have a place for you to stay. And I was like, oh my God, that's so generous. Just super. Okay. Went back in, we drank, and at like 8 that morning, we went down to this place on Sullivan Street, and I put my dirty clothes in a pile on the floor. And every day I took a bottle of Comet Cleanser and poured it around that I stole from the local bodega, and sort of poured some of it around where I would eventually pass out that night so the rats and roaches wouldn't crawl over me. And that was where I lived for a year, stealing to get food, drink, whatever. And then eventually I just, I stole some stuff from my godmother's house, took the money, went to the San Pedro Hotel, super glamorous, no longer there, rooms by the hour, no phones, plexiglass window between me and the concierge. And I ate a fistful of barbiturates that I had bought from my old heroin dealer. And, I had 3 bottles of Popov vodka in a brand new plastic format, much lighter to carry.
I remember.
Not breakable. And, I drank that and drank all the barbiturates, and I said goodbye to the world. And 2.5 days later or so, I woke up and somehow I wasn't dead, which, based on what I ate and drank, according to the doctors, was enough to take down a fucking elephant.
Right.
And somehow someone said, we're going to give you one more chance. And 3 days later, I was in treatment at Hazelden in Minnesota. And I've been there ever since, and just restarted my life there. And I didn't know any other people. I had some friends who were sober, but it was very weird. I got to Hazelden, and 3 or 4 days on the medical unit, and then I got cleared and went into the place where I'd lived for the next month. And in my room, there was an insurance salesman from Kentucky. There was a CIA agent, an operative in the field, who was almost 60, Glenn, who would threaten people by telling them, like, that piece of paper on that table, I can kill you with it. And I mean, it's like that's not like a friendly thing.
Right, yeah.
The other person in the room was a well-known NHL hockey player enforcer who has since passed away, who was in and out for the last 30 years before he died in 2021, and me. And I was just like, oh my God, where have I landed? Day 2, I have my first meeting with my counselor, and I walk in, and he's like, hi, I'm Phil. I'm like, hi, Phil. And he starts telling me my life story. Now, the question he was supposed to ask me when I walk in was, tell me a little, why are you here?
Right.
Tell me about yourself. I mean, that's having been in treatment. I mean, this was not my first go round.
Right.
Lots of psych wards. New York, there was no drunk tank. You went right to Bellevue. It's a psych ward. So all I have are psych ward stories. They basically did the same thing, 72-hour hold. And if it's just booze, you're out. And, inpatient treatments, outpatient treatments, psychology. I mean, spiritual farms where you picked vegetables, for a month, therapeutic communities is what they were called in the 80s and early 90s. And I did my share of those. But I got into Phil's office, and he starts telling me these, and some of them were pretty personal, not general.
Right.
And he looked at me and he smiled. He was just one of those guys who was just brilliant and gifted and a true angel in my life. And he said, I'm going on vacation. So I'm going to work with you for a week or so. And then someone else is going to, Bob down the hall is going to take over for the last 3 weeks. And he said, usually we just let someone, we don't want to do that.
Right.
We just want someone to have one person for 4 weeks. He said, but I had to meet you because I know so much about you. And I was like, still so cloudy. I was like, how do you know anything about me? And I had 5 friends who in the previous 4 or 5 years had all gone to Hazelden, all been on the Shoemaker unit, all had Phil as a counselor. And I mean really close friends. Some of them were like chosen family friends.
Right.
Some of them were family friends who my best friends, but like our parents hung out. So Phil knew everything. And it was the best possible start I could have had because I couldn't keep any secrets from him because he already kind of knew.
Right.
And so there wasn't a lot of shame involved with it. And then I was off to the races. I had a couple of hiccups along the way where it was like I almost turned and ran.
Right.
And gave up, but I was very lucky in that I had a couple of like insightful moments that I now looking back realize didn't come from me, where I actually asked for help for the first time in my life or said, I don't understand X. Can you explain it to me? Can you help me? And I never said those words. I'm not proud of this until I was 30.
Wow.
I mean, that's crazy. You talk about ego. You talk about the alcoholic mind. For the first time to sort of say, yeah, I don't know how to do that. Can you show me? Can you help me? Can you explain it? And luckily, one of them was this, relationship with anything bigger than yourself, something sufficient to recover from this horrific disease of mind, body, and spirit. And I sat down at a table with 2 people in the cafeteria, and they said, how you doing? And I said, not great. I said, I just come from a lecture where basically they, were quoting from the text of the 12-step group that I attend regularly, telling that if you want to get well, you better find a relationship bigger with something than yourself.
That's right.
And they pointed out that all the stories in our text all tell. The one thing they have in common is they all explain how they found that relationship.
That's right.
That's the one thing they all have in common other than getting sober. But the starter was that. And the 2 founders of our 12-step program tell their story in the beginning of the book. And they tell how they found that thing. So I put 2 and 2 together and realized, holy shit, if I don't find that relationship, I'm back in that hellhole that I was living in, or worse, at the San Pedro Hotel trying to kill myself again.
Right.
And I knew it was a life or death moment. And when they said, how you doing? Because for me, the truth was always option 5. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Instead of saying, fine, how are you?
Right.
I actually told them how I was feeling. I'm scared. I see this happening and I need to have a power and I don't know how to do it. And one of them pointed at the 12th step, which has a past tense promise at the beginning of it that basically assures you don't have to have a white light spiritual experience. You can just, find someone to take you through the steps,
right,
and you can have the rote experience.
That's right.
But once you get to 12, you will have a relate. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I don't have to wait for the what, because I had built my life hating you and everyone else in this room and out on the street and everyone driving by and everyone in this town and the next town and the next town and the next town, because I didn't have what I wanted. And my brain told me you guys all had everything you wanted. And I hated people for that. I hated them. I mean, it was beyond resentment. Truly. Sure. I mean, I just life is fucking me over. That was the feeling I carried with me every single day. It was so strong. And I let go for 30 seconds, and I listened. And that night there was a man speaking on the stage. They had a nightly speaker in the auditorium at the treatment center I was in. And I asked him if he would be my sponsor. And he said, you're like 10 days clean. You live here. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I live in St. Paul. He's like, well, how do you know? Have they told you where you're going? And I'm like, no, I just know that I need a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like I need someone to go, like I just learned that tonight, and it clicked. And all those other meetings I'd gone to, because I'd gone to meetings still drinking and using,
right?
Months, in other attempts at sobriety. So I knew the lingo a little bit. And he's like, we actually have to be in the same place and you actually have to stop using. And he said, but if you make it down, if they recommend you go to a halfway house and you wind up in St. Paul or Minneapolis, call me. I'm around. He gave me his number. I called him the next day, and I didn't know why. I just called him. And he said, stop calling me. Pay attention where you are. If you come down to St. Paul, and he repeated it again. And I wound up, as luck would have it, transitioning to the Hazelden Halfway House in St. Paul. And he was my sponsor for 33 years up until his passing last summer. And certainly one of the greatest relationships of my life. And it saved my life. I mean, truly, literally saved my life. I didn't know other people in the hospitality business. So when I opened, I went and washed dishes. Right. I knew how to do restaurants. Like other people worked like within a couple blocks of this halfway house. There were places that hired people from the halfway house because they could pay them like, below minimum wage. So a lot of people went to the this gas station / car wash place that had like, whipped hundreds of cars an hour through this thing, and they had 20 guys with rags drying them when you pulled out. And so they got that job. There were a couple other businesses around the halfway house that they knew there was a lot of great labor right there. I refused to get it. I went into the head of the halfway house, who's now a really good friend of mine, and I presented in pencil on like 2 sheets of paper plan because the food was terrible. I said, I want to apply to take over the food service position here. If you get rid of this other guy, I'm going to drop your food costs. Food's going to be better. I need this kind of team. It's going to take this kind of money. We're going to pull all this equipment. I said, I walked through it is terrible. And he looked at me and he said, go wash dishes somewhere. And I was like, what? Like, I know how to transform. He's like, go wash dishes somewhere. So I took that literally, and I got a job at they call them coffee shops in the Twin Cities and have for a long time. But it's basically what we would call a diner. It serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but they close at 3, and breakfast is served all day, and lunch and dinner have the same menu. Mm-hmm. And I went and I washed dishes there, and sometimes one of the cooks called in sick, and I was, I stepped in and got to cook something. And then a restaurant in New York decided they were going to do a second one, and they chose Minneapolis for a lot of crazy reasons. And they got this vintage space in the oldest tall building in our downtown, the best location in town. And they opened up a 200-seat French bistro. And I was like, oh, new restaurant. They'll need a dishwasher. I now have 2 months of experience, plus years of, sitting in the dish pit in other jobs when someone called out, or being in restaurants that were small where you just took turns.
Right.
So I went in and I applied for a job as the dishwasher, and they let me bus tables 1 or 2 lunches a week, and then I would go home to the halfway. So I had to be home by 5:00. And one day, the sous chef who worked the grill station at lunch and helped expedite was called in sick, and they didn't know what to do, and they called around, but they couldn't get anyone over there enough. And I went to the chef, and I said, I can do that station. And he looked at me and said, "You're the dishwasher. Like, go back to the dish pit." And I said, "No, really. I mean, like, I've watched, because they would throw hot pans and tongs and spoons into these bus tubs built into these little carve outs in their station. I would run down when I couldn't grab them and run them back up and wash the pots and pans, then put the pans back above their station and the spoons on their hooks, and, run another load of glasses to the dishwasher. And it was just a hustle during the typical dishwashing thing. And, but I had watched everything, and it was a French bistro. Like, I crushed that in my sleep.
Yeah.
And mise en place was done the night before. There's plenty of everything. But it was basically like, grill a steak, grill a salmon, grill a shrimp for the grilled shrimp salad over on the garde-manger, onion soup under the broiler, escargot under the broiler. I mean, I can still remember the 12 dishes in that station, right? Help drop fries, because the steak frite for lunch came with them and came with a couple other things. So I was in charge of fries. And I was, I just said, "Hey, look, I'm telling you, and I wouldn't tell you if I couldn't, I can do that station." And they just couldn't find anyone. And I finally just said to them, "You can't find anyone. I am telling you I can cook that station." So it goes through. The chef's trying to expedite it. I get in there. Half hour into the thing, I mean, the place filled up all at once for lunch. The chef was overwhelmed. Right. And I just grabbed all the tickets and just did my thing. And I love expediting. I mean, there's something about the order, the math of it. And you either have that internal clock or you do not have that internal clock. And it has nothing to do with all the other talents in the restaurant business. Some people are able to cook and do it. Others are able to serve and be on the other side and do it. I mean, I've bumped into food runners who have that gift, and I've made them expo in my restaurant. I mean, it's just like, yeah, you're going to do that because it is such a rare gift to do it right.
It is.
And so I grabbed all the dupes, got everything sort of straightened out, put out the station, and the owner of the restaurant called me into his office and asked why his new dishwasher, shut the door. I thought I was getting fired because I was I was a cocky asshole at 90, 120 days. I knew everything. I mean, I tell you I'd never opened a car hood in my life. I tell you how to rebuild your engine. I mean, I still had that. Like, all that I was dry. And I wound up, he said, "Why is my dishwasher making food that not only looks nicer than what my chef puts out, but solved we've been struggling for weeks to figure out how to get the food out at lunch to all these people at one time. And you just walked on there and did that." And I'm just like, yeah, I used to work in restaurants in New York. And he's like, "Okay." And he said, "Great." And that was the end of the conversation. I walked into work the next day. I got there at 7 a.m. because you had to help receive stuff.
Right.
So I had some porter duties early, and the chef would come in around 8 and start making soups and butchering fish. So, I'd put the fish away and stuff like that, and then he'd start butchering. And owner called me into his office, and he said, I called some friends in New York and gave them your name. He said, you've cooked in some very serious places. And I was like, oh, fuck. Because I thought what was going to come back was you stole from here, you got fired from here, you can't work here, kind of thing. And it turns out he knew. I had worked in a bunch of 3-star Michelin restaurants in Paris and other cities and in Hong Kong and Venice, and then come back to New York. And I had worked for, Ann Rosenzweig and Thomas Keller and, Joachim Splikal and a lot of really great chefs at some really, really, really great restaurants. And then run a bunch of restaurants with a guy named Steve Hansen, who founded a company that...
I didn't know you worked for Steve.
Yeah, we opened the first 3 restaurants together.
Oh, wow.
Without TK and Steve, even though they both told me to get the fuck out, because I had hurt, I had stolen, I had done such horrible things there, they continued to love me up from afar.
Right.
You should watch the addiction episode of What's Eating America, a thing that I did for MSNBC, because we put Steve in it. And I went to his house, and he told my story from his point of view, which was, it's a very cool. I'll watch you'll really dig it.
I would love that.
But he founded Be Our Guest, and a really amazing human being in very many ways, a very tough human being in very many ways, but a great man. And so the gig was up, and he immediately saw, this guy Michael said, I can get a better chef for less money because he's living in a halfway house.
Right.
And I'm like, look, here's the deal. I have to be home every night at 5. I can't do this. He goes, when do you get out? And I said, I don't know. And I got out, and that was it. I wound up, taking over that restaurant, and I didn't like the skill set of the people who were working there was not good. So I went around to every halfway house, all the big ones in St. Paul and Minneapolis. There's like 5 or 6. Right. And I put up a sign that said, if you are an experienced, cook, sous chef, whatever, from a big city and have done the job before at an A+ level, call me up. We have a place.
Right.
And within about 4 or 5 months, everyone else was gone except 2 people who were normies and great and all the rest of that. And I'd hired like 12, but the beauty of it is that these people were like insanely skilled. Like they were, line cooks and sous chefs and pastry chefs from really well-known restaurants who had cratered, gone to Hazelden, were told to stick around for a year or 2. And we had a kitchen where there were no shift drinks, and it was safe. Right. And we talked recovery to each other, and we were all early on. And we crushed it. And within about a year, it was like, best restaurant in town, and it was fun to cook old school French food in a place that didn't have a place doing old school French food.
Right.
And, I was telling stories with the food, and then I needed a bigger audience, and I quit and I started doing media. And
how did that talk about that? Because, you started doing media, maybe not before the Food Network, but you were one of the early, you were one of the early people to really sort of reach the national stage. How did that happen?
My sponsor, Jim, told me that if you want to go here, pointing to one side, sometimes you have to go through here, pointing to the other side. Nothing is really a straight line. Pay attention. Put a sock in your mouth and open up your ears. All the old timer recovery stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I took him very literally. And I'm really, I owe him my life because I listened. I actually listened.
Right.
And the message that I got from other people was take risks. We talked at the top about, if not now, when, right? Time is a wasting.
Yep.
And I knew I had stories to tell. I knew I wanted to tell them. I knew that I couldn't get there in this restaurant. The owner of the restaurant, who made me his partner at the French Bistro in Minneapolis, said to me, because I said, let's open the to-go shop. There's like a 500 in the same building that we were in. Through the back door, we cook everything in our kitchen, right? We'd have to probably hire some third shift guys, but that was fine. I mean, we could do it. But let's open a to-go place. Like a little mini Dean and DeLuca.
Right,
but prepared food. No one else in Minneapolis is doing it. Sandwiches at lunch, grab and go, fresh squeezed dough. And the kind of thing that became super successful right after my partner said, we're not going to do it. And I realized I was ambitious and he was not ambitious, that he liked sitting at the bar, pulling his couple $100,000 a year out of the restaurant. It supported his lifestyle. And we're just in a different place. And so I walked in and I quit. And the next day I walked into a TV station, a radio station, and our big statewide monthly glossy magazine. And I said, I want to be an intern. And they said, you're whatever, 30. Well, no, but I was 36, 37 at that point. And they said, what do you mean you want to be an intern? And I said, I'm changing careers and I need to learn this business. And they said, well, what can you bring us? Where do you want to be? And at the magazine, I said, I want to write about food. And at the radio station, I said, I want to do a radio show about food. And at the TV station, I said, I want to be a features reporter and I want to do food. And they all laughed at me. They said, food's not that big a thing. We have one guy on food. And the radio station was like, food?
Right.
And the TV people were like, we once a week bring on like a cookbook author who comes into town. We don't have to pay anything for it. They demo a dish. Our anchor interviews them, and that's it. And I basically said, wake up. Food Network was like, I don't know, 4 years old, 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I said, food is about to be the biggest thing to hit this, culture, since Elvis. I mean, like put on your fucking seatbelt. And because I could see the forest for the trees.
Right.
And it was obvious to me what was happening. And there was only so much time for me to get in that door that was open. So I was like on a mission from God, as the Blues Brothers said. I was like, I got to learn this shit in 6 months. I got to start selling myself and get in there before every young person coming out of culinary school tells that, I want my own restaurant and a TV show.
Right.
And they all hired me. And within for 90 days. And I just made myself indispensable. I mean, I just did everything and I proved out what it was. And by the time I left the magazine, I had turned down the job of food editor because I knew that was locked in my profession for good. And I didn't want to be just in that territory. And I know this sounds really egotistical, but like I wanted to tell global stories to a global audience because I thought it was important. And it didn't come from a place of ego. It came from a place of cultural understanding. I was going to meetings all the time, and all I heard was patience, tolerance, and understanding. It said that on the back of our chips.
Yep.
It was talked about. It was in posters on the walls. People said it all the time to me. Patience, tolerance, understanding. Patience, tolerance, understanding. And yet the world was increasingly being less patient, less tolerant, and understanding with other people.
Right.
And I felt it. And I said, I want to make a show about that. And my friends were like, what kind of show? I'm like, a TV show. And they're like, a TV show? And I'm like, yes. And it's like, you work for right. By the way, the three places were paying me like $10 a week. I mean,
right.
There was I was barely cobbling together an existence. And they were like, what do you mean a TV show? And I said, just watch. There's a plan for this. And I made myself indispensable. I proved the point. I kind of squeezed other people out. I was writing like 7 columns a month for this magazine. Some of them were very small, little squibs and stuff. I was doing the main food reviews. I was doing the dining criticism. I was, doing, the special food features twice a year, best restaurants.
Right.
But I really learned how to write. I had a great editor, Adam Platt. Not the one from New York, the one from Minneapolis. Okay. He's now the editor of Twin Cities Business Monthly, I think. But he was the longtime editor of the back half, of Minneapolis St. Paul magazine. And I wound up, I did a weekend food show. Then I got an audience for that and sponsors, and another station wooed me over. I did drive time. Show called Afternoon Delight with Andrew Zimmern and Colleen Cruz, which was fantastic. Best job I ever had was radio. Still love radio. Learned more in radio than anything else. Learned how to do TV in radio.
Sure.
For the audience, with TV, you record something, it gets edited, but you're shooting over the course of a week. So you can't have a different personality Wednesday afternoon from Friday night because the editors can't cut it. You can't be high energy in one, low energy in the other.
Right.
Say in radio, you learn to be the same thing. Because people tune in for 15 minutes, or maybe they just leave it on, but you have to be at one speed. Doesn't mean you can't get excited or you can't get slow, but you have to be at one speed.
Right.
And audience aware. And, Adam Platt taught me how to write again. I mean, I had a good education, high school, college, I was well educated. But I hadn't written in a long time, and I mean, really written.
Right.
And at the TV station, I wound up working 5 mornings a week. I was part of the morning show, Good Morning Minneapolis or whatever it was called, which was just like the Saturday Night Live skit. Right. We had an over-sexualized newsreader who would make male interns help her adjust her mic packs. You wear redundant packs. You wear 2 lavs in real TV, and in case one goes down. And she would always hike up her skirt. I mean, she was just crazy. We had the overzealous male host who was all ego, who thought he knew everything. We had the cute and buoyant but very resentful female co-host. We had the hippy dippy weatherman like George Carlin taught, bing bong, 5 minutes past the big hour of 5 o'clock here in the Twin Cities. Wake up, Minneapolis. It's cold out today. I mean, it was just hysterical. And we had a couple features reporters, and I was one of those. And Friday I did a cooking demo in the kitchen, and so I was making packages. I learned how to edit. I learned how to write, all the rest of that. And I kept making stuff on my own and pushing it. And it took meetings on my days off that were rare because I was working Saturdays doing my radio show. I would fly into New York. I would get Mondays off, and I would try to get meetings at TV stations. And Food Network they almost hired me for 2 or 3 different things. And I realized I didn't want to be there because they wanted to put me on weekend mornings with all the other dump and stir shows. And I was like, I'm not selling a dump and stir show. I want to go around the world, and I want to show people in Norway what people in Japan eat like. I want to create cultural understanding through food, and no one got it. And finally, I got a meeting at Travel Channel, and the rest, as they say, is history. I didn't know that they were about to buy Cook's Tour away from Food Network, which was Tony Bourdain's first show. And they were about to buy that. And so they wanted to launch Monday nights as like the Explorers Night, and basically put 2 unknown people on TV. And Pat Young, who was running Travel Channel at the time, was like giddy with excitement. And I remember talking to him about it at length after it. And he said, I knew right away that if I put you and Tony back to back, you were kind of like oil and vinegar, but you were both delicious. And that if I made that salad dressing on Monday, the rest of the nights would fill in by themselves.
Right.
And I mean, Tony, if you watch Tony and Cook's tour, which you can watch on YouTube, or me and the couple of specials I did for Travel Channel before Bizarre Foods, including what was the pilot for Bizarre Foods, they were just testing me in different formats to see what would work, and I was hoping Bizarre Foods would be it, or what became Bizarre Foods. And we're awful. I mean, we really are awful. I mean, there's moments of like, wow, that was a great moment. What about the other 46 minutes? I mean, just terrible.
Right.
Really
right.
terrible. I was just fat and sweaty and didn't make my point all the time, and occasionally very funny and amusing, but
right.
It's really hard for me to watch myself during the whole first season, but especially during that time where they were testing us out together, and they wound up putting us on Monday nights together. And the rest, as they say, is truly history. To have two, I don't know what you would call legacy TV shows that had as much impact as what Tony created and what I created. I mean, it was wild. But you talk about going from 0 to 100 miles an hour.
Right.
That was 0 to 100 miles an hour, and it actually was where he and I became close friends, because neither one of us were like in TV all the time. Like, we weren't media people that after 20 years finally got a hit show.
Right.
We were both addicts. We were both really sick people. We both had a change in our life and lifestyle. We were restaurant geeks, but we loved, everything. We were like junkies for culture. I mean, Tony could talk to you about, new wave cinema in France in the 50s, or the rise of German punk rock. I mean, like, you name the topic, he could talk to you about it. We were both polymaths and ultimately became multi-hyphenate type people that do a lot of things. So looking back, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said, oh no, I wasn't talented. And I don't say this with ego. I say it looking back. It's like, I didn't see it, but other people saw it, and it wound up working. And in television, in mainstream pop culture, if you have a product, a book, a radio show, TV show, whatever, the world votes. I mean, it is, and then look, some people unfairly get screwed over, and, they fade, that they lose that thing that they created, and the thing was great, but outside circumstances. COVID, 9/11. I mean, the world changes sometimes, and media changes, and, then it's a reboot. If that happens and one thing ends, and then you go on to make other things, at a certain point, and those things are successful and your audience follows you, at a certain point, and I know this sounds crazy because I say it with humility, you have to accept the fact that you can do it, because otherwise you can't be productive, and you can't build a platform, and you can't be of service. Because the only reason that I do any of this is to be of service. I truly mean that. I learned very early on that when I am not being of service, I'm miserable, I am discontent, and that's just the beginning of it. I mean, within a day or two.
Right.
So I was trying to build things that meant something and get a platform so I could then change things in the world. It's why I have kids at the Mwembe School District in Zambia growing their own food. And that's not like a one-time shot with the UN, whereas like over there for pretty pictures, like I work it.
Right.
Or all the other nonprofit stuff I do, or the boards that I work on, all the stuff that I try to do is because I need to make a difference. And I have a big enough platform to do that. But
why do you think, why are you driven that way?
Because
not everybody that has had your success would parlay it to that.
Because I have the same disease you have.
Yeah.
And I learned, I paid attention, like really paid attention the first couple of years I was clean. Like I think I still pay attention. I mean, I'm very active.
Yeah,
I mean,
me too.
I mean,
I've had the same sponsor for 24 years.
I still sponsor guys. I go to meetings.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like head, ass, and overcoat into recovery. However, the first couple years when it was really life or death to me, I really paid attention. And I lucked into a Wednesday night home group in St. Paul called Outright Mental Defectives. And it was a 2-hour big book meeting.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
2-hour big book meeting. So by the end of it, I was toast. I had the attention span of a mosquito.
Right.
And I'm ready to go out with the guys and, be done.
Right.
And Big Mike and Charlie and Victor, I'll never forget these guys, looked at me and they said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Back to the halfway house." It's like, "You don't have to be back there till midnight. It's only 8:30. And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe get something to eat." I'm looking at them like, "What do you mean?" I'm like 2 months sober.
Right. Yep.
3 months sober. And they're like, we're going to go out and we're going to go down to the Dorothy Day Center and talk to some people about recovery. And I'm like, "What's the Dorothy Day Center?" And they said, "Oh, fresh meats." And they took me down and it was a homeless shelter. And I'm like, "We're going to talk to these guys?" And they're like, "There, but for the grace of God, go you." Yep. Were you ever homeless and X, Y, and Z? And I looked at them and I was like, "Yes." And they were like, "Well, you're on the other side of it. Why don't you tell people that?" And I was like, "What?" And they said, "Tell people that. Tell them your story." And I was like, I looked over to these guys who were like, most of them were just passed out waiting for the place to, open again for whatever, midnight snacks and beds, whatever the Dorothy Day system was at the time. And I'm just like, "Oh my God, you guys are fucking out of your minds." And I left there that night, and I had never felt so good. I had stopped thinking about my problems for 90 minutes.
There it is.
The gnawing anxiety of my brain eating itself wasn't there. That pit in my chest, that ace bandage of anxiety that had always been there my whole life. Before I ever picked up a drink or a drug, I had this ace bandage of anxiety wrapped around my chest.
Yeah.
And it never went away until that first night after Outright Mental Defectives. And I was like, "Oh my God." And then instead of keeping it a secret, when someone said the next morning, "How are you? What'd you do last night?" I said, "I had the most amazing experience, but I have this ace bandage of tension anxiety around my chest, and it went away last night when I was doing down at Dorothy Day Center. Right. It's back now, but it was gone for the first time ever last night." And somebody joked with me and said, "Well, you better do it all the time then." And I was just like, something clicked in my head and I realized, okay, I can't do it all the time. So I did as much as I could. And it took me 4 years, 5 years maybe, to tell my sponsor how ridiculous, like that this person had said, because it seemed like such a one-off thing. But I actually finally got around something. I don't know why I told him. There was no reason. Something weird came up in conversation. I was like, "Oh yeah, a long time ago, someone said do it all the time," and my sponsor said, "Why don't you?" And I said, "Well, because I've got work. I can't be at meetings all the time and carrying." He goes, "Why do you think helping other people only has to be other alcoholics and drug addicts, or only has to be when you're doing quote unquote 12-step related service work?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like at that point, he was talking French to a caveman.
Right.
And he opened up the text, 3rd edition, and went down to the bottom of page 84. And he said, "Read that last paragraph." And it's my favorite paragraph in the book. And it essentially is all about step 10. It is the 10th step, and when we're lonely, anxious, jealous, and afraid, do these 4 things. And one of them, it says, "and help other people." And I read it, and my sponsor said, "It says help other people. It doesn't say help other alcoholics. So how about pushing in someone's chair? How about calling your mother more often? That's service work."
Yeah.
How about," and he just started listing shit. And I was just like, oh my God. And I was one person walking into that coffee shop for, my daily check-in with my sponsor. I mean, we lived on the same block.
Right.
And I was another person when I left. And I've been that person ever since. And it's every single thing, every day, every moment, letting someone go first in the line at the coffee bar this morning, because I was a little early and they were like, this lady behind me was kind of freaking out. And instead of making fun of her, old Andrew, and positioning my body so that I was signaling to her, yeah, I'm ahead of you, I just turned around and I said, please, and just gestured with my hand, because I wasn't coming over here for like leaving for another 20 minutes, and she had plenty of time to get her coffee ahead of me. That's service work. That's being other-centered. That's just like, and it's not being polite. It's not being the good guy. It is I do it because that lifestyle for me gives me peace of mind. It allows me to have the things in my life, inwardly focused things, that allow me to be the most useful to the rest of the people that I encounter throughout my day. And it is not, I talked about the school district thing with the UN. It is not about those grand gestures.
Right.
It's great that I do. I love it. Helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
That project touches tens of thousands of lives and hopefully is transforming how farming is going to work in Zambia. And I want to see that to completion. I want to see change in Zambia. And I want the ambassador over there, who's a friend of mine, to say, yeah, it started at the Mwembe School District. Nice job. Because I believe we can transform Zambia, and it can be a model for countries in Central Africa, especially South Central Africa, and be transformative for the green economy there. I mean, I'm working mostly on the blue economy now, but I've got to see that project through. The grand gestures are great, but it's letting the person go ahead of you in the coffee line that is the most meaningful. Mm-hmm. I mean, that set me up for the rest of the day. I'm good. Like, I feel great.
Good.
So yeah, it's the idea that you can just be a better person and be of service in this world and raise your hand. And yes, you change, you put away chairs at a meeting, you mop up afterwards, you make coffee.
Used to clean the ashtrays.
Oh yeah. I was on butt can duty forever. But once you do that, what they didn't tell you was be on butt can duty or set up chairs and do that at your meeting. And you will then be the butt can person and set up chairs for life.
Yeah.
And that's what it becomes. Mm. So when I am in a place, it may not be setting up chairs or doing butt cans, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And that's how I run my life. And if you put those things first and you put other people first, amazing things will happen. You will learn how to navigate life, and you will have the incredible gifts that I have. And then you have to pay it back. I mean, it's this endless cycle of gratitude and returning the favor. And I prefer, I prefer to live that way. I guess that's the bottom line. Versus all the other ways, I've tried all the other ways. To anyone who's listening, I've tried all the other ways.
Right.
They do not work as well as this way.
Right.
Be grateful, return the favor, do the work. And
do the work.
Incredible shit happens.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
I love that. So I've got rapid fire.
Yep.
A couple more questions. I could listen. I don't get to talk recovery like this as much as I wish I did. I love this. Thank you. This has been my meeting.
We have each other's phone number.
Yeah,
we could do this.
I know.
We could do this more often.
Yeah, thank you. God, what a great way to start the day. What does the word hospitality mean to you?
Oh, I just wrote a column of that on my Substack that came out the other day.
I subscribe, but I have not read.
You should. John Winterman wrote a column in Food and Wine, and I love him. He's great. His restaurant in New York City, Francie. I mean, he's an amazing hospitalitarian and great human being, very bright. And he wrote an article saying for Food and Wine, on their website saying that because the Bear and Will Guidara's unreasonable hospitality, customers want Patti LuPone to descend from I
read that article.
And because I'm a sober person and because I try to incorporate hospitality and be there for people, do the thing that is unreasonable, letting the lady behind me in the coffee line go first, I had a visceral reaction to it.
I didn't like it.
And I wrote a comment that said, "You're not getting it." And I said to him in the piece, I said, when you're writing this, you even almost go out and say how restorative and glorious it is to do something for another human being and give them an experience or a piece of one. It's not about the grand gesture. It's giving the kid the warm cookie when the adults are having dessert. It's calling a cab or an Uber for an elderly couple and saying, "Oh, no, we have your address. We got this. This is on us," or whatever. It's a rainy night.
Right.
Topping off someone's glass with, wine but not charging them for it because they're halfway through their entree, and instead of selling them another glass, the upsell, the hard sell, you just give them another inch of wine in their glass, and they get it, and it's just like, wow, what a lovely little touch. It basically costs nothing.
Right.
And yet that could be the moment that someone's like, oh my God, what a thoughtful thing. And that thoughtfulness is transformative, yes, for the person who is the recipient, but as Robert Egger, one of my gurus and the founder of DC Kitchen, and he's Jose's guru and one of mine, it is not always about, I'm paraphrasing some of his most famous thinking. Right. It's not about the recipient. It's about the transformation of the giver.
Amen.
And I wrote that, and that's why I'm alive now.
No
shit. So I said in this piece,
shit.
Wrong.
Right.
Pop culture does not, a TV show about a guy who looks like he lives in his linen hamper is not causing your problem. Will's book is not about giving a sled to a child that has never seen snow. He uses that as an example because they did it at what was at the time the best restaurant in the world.
Yeah.
But his point is just put another inch in people's glass. You're missing the forest for the trees.
Right.
Sometimes it's just the nod or the hug or regular or remembering a birthday or their names. But it is about the transformation of the people who are doing the giving.
Amen.
So that's hospitality.
I love that. I ask every guest that, and I love the answers. You've accomplished a lot. What keeps you up at night? What are you afraid of?
Things not working out for my child. That's really hard as a dad.
Yeah.
With a son that has a lot of developmental issues.
Yeah.
I have a child who isn't normative, and it's taught me more about unconditional love and patience than anything to have a child in that position.
Yeah.
Who isn't going to go to college, who I've never played catch with.
Right.
Wasn't what I counted on. Was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I love him more than anything in the world. And it's given me an opportunity to practice real love and real acceptance. And at the same time, not being willing to settle. I do a lot of work. There's been some rumblings of it on the internet. So I'm joining the board of Autism Speaks, and I do a lot of work in this area that I don't really talk about a lot, because as a parent of a non-normative child, I think it's my obligation to, because I've hemorrhaged every dollar that I've ever made on taking care of my child. It's just circumstantial. But what scares the shit out of me is the other hundreds of thousands of parents across the country in the same situation as me who have to warehouse their children in public hospitals a week at a time just to get a respite. Who don't have the access to private educational consultants and doctors the way I do because insurance doesn't pay for it.
Right.
And who don't have the ability to pay for the private help that when he was young I was able to pay for. Older, it's different at every age group. And he's a work in progress. I really feel he's close to figuring out how to do things, but I have to make sure he knows how to take care of himself before I die. And so it's him turning it, but it's also like, what happens if I get hit by a car?
Right.
What happens if, like James and Charles, like my number gets called?
Right.
Like that is the stuff. Well, that's the only thing that keeps me up at night. Everything else, I know if the world fell apart, I'll sell soup on the corner. I'm not worried about taking care of me and,
right.
The dogs and whatever.
Right.
But what's my kid going to do?
What's your hope for the hospitality industry?
That we do a better job of communicating to our guests at the national level that we have undervalued ourselves for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a titanic reset. Food is expensive. Food in a restaurant's expensive. The costs are expensive.
Right.
And we are going to recalibrate. We are a splinter industry of hundreds of thousands of little micro businesses.
Right.
There is no national leadership. The NRA is a joke.
Yeah.
And as a founder of the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which we started right after COVID, I am ferociously dedicated in other parts of my life to making sure that the consumer understands this. We're in the middle of what is a wave of national closures. I don't think the economy looks very bright for the next couple of years. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And we are lousy at telling our own story collectively.
Good Lord, we are. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So I try to tell that story so that in the hope that enough consumers hear my voice that says, look, yeah, it's goofy, but $12 chicken is not sustainable.
Right.
And I do think on the flip side of that, we are going to, you ever see Blade Runner?
Oh yeah, of course.
So at one point they're eating everything. It's like, Japanese style. Everything is little 12-seat counters. I think that we're going to enter an era where everything is small because the costs of doing it are better. It's safer economically. Right. It's a safer play.
Okay.
But I think we have to educate consumers. I think we need a national voice, and I think we have to replace the NRA with something that speaks for everyone, NRA members and all the independents,
right.
and can truly communicate exactly what's going on so our customers understand. I read all these articles like, people in restaurants suck now and service is bad and all the rest of that.
Nuts.
And then at the same point, I hear people in restaurants all over say, what the fuck? It's like Winterman's point.
Yeah.
I get it. He's been beaten to death by the new guest, model.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck. Okay, I get you. It's bad. We have to close that gap. Right? Guests are angry at restaurants and they raise their prices too. And restaurants are like, oh my God, we have to survive. We weren't making money on it. We've been making an 8% margin. Yeah. If I was making or 5% margin or 3% margin, if that was happening at any of my other 8 or 9 businesses that I own, I would be like, yeah, we're closing.
You're shutting it down.
Yeah. I mean, that's not sustainable. Yeah. So people have to come to understand each other and understand what the nature of buying food out is. I think we have too many restaurants in America. I'm really, COVID changed everything. It got people hooked on takeout. Everyone started doing it. And, for a lot of restaurants, that's not sustainable.
No.
And I want people to cook more at home because I think it's better for human development. But I'm a restaurant guy.
Yeah.
I do want them to go out 2 to 3 times a week and brunch on Sunday or whatever it is. And they have to want to do that. Right. And that want is decreasing. People are going out less to restaurants, and when they do, they're spending less money. So there's a whole bunch of gaps that you can see statistically give me great pause. We need to heal that.
Got it. Last question. So I wrote a book called Say Grace. That's the name of this podcast.
Yep.
In the South, probably everywhere, but Sunday supper at Grandma's.
Yes.
We would all hold hands. She would choose one of the grandkids to say grace.
Yep.
And really what you were saying is what you were thankful for.
Yep.
What are you thankful for?
Learning how to be the dog.
I want to know more about that if we don't have time. But.
Well, it's really simple.
Right.
I'm a selfish user of people and taker of things. At the root cause of that is I just wanted to be happy. I was never happy. I was always angry. I was the resentful, angry, awful person. I always wanted to be happy. How do you be happy? Brene Brown.
Love her. Love her.
Brene said to me once, to be happy, you have to be truly empathetic. And I looked at her and I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. Like, truly, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, I am empathetic. I'm like, but I'm not happy, so I'm clearly not doing it right. And she, did the Brene Brown thing and said, like, go figure it out. And I was just like, fuck. And over the course of the next couple of years, I really focused on that. And, Hitler had a dog. One of the worst human beings to ever live. Irredeemable. But when he came home, the dog bounded to him and jumped in his lap and just sat with him on the couch. Noah crawled under the bed one day when he was like 4 or 5, and I lay down next to him. Instead of screaming at him, get out from under there, or trying to pull him out because you're going to hurt yourself, or whatever the other things I did, I just lay down and just sat there, and he kept kicking and breaking shit and underneath the bed. And then after like 10 minutes, he looked at me and he's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" I said, "I'm just being here with you." And he crawled out and he said, "That's silly." He was like 5.
Right.
And I read him a story and he went to bed. And I realized you got to be the dog. The dog is just pure empathy. The dog just sits there with you. It does not try to solve your problem. So if you tell me you're struggling with something, I don't say, well, Steve, here's how to fix it.
Right. Because
people operationalize before they co-regulate. Maybe you've already fixed it. You're just telling me the current story and you're about to get to the what I did was.
Right.
But I've interrupted you and told you. A lot of people, it's a version of mansplaining, right?
Yeah.
But if I just am like, oh my God, that's awful, and wait for you to either say, got any ideas on that?
Right.
Or maybe you pause and then tell me the rest of the story or whatever, I'm co-regulating with you. I am being the dog. The dog's pure empathy. The fastest route to empathy is to be the dog. Don't operationalize with people. Co-regulate. Connect. Don't correct. Be the fucking dog. If you are the dog, who doesn't love their dog? Who doesn't love their dog?
I love that. So we have a gift for you. This is from our friends at Smithy, at Charleston-based. Cooper, I don't know, how do you describe someone that makes cast iron pans?
They're a metalsmith?
Metalsmith, yeah. But it's got your name on it.
Oh, my God.
Andrew, thank you. Thank you for being
here. I love this because, I have a TV show where one of the shows I do, I cook over open fire.
Yeah.
And this will be used beautifully. Good. So I'm super grateful. That's super kind.
Yeah, man. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for asking me.
And I'll see you soon.
Yes. Well, I have your number. You have my number.
Yeah,
so we can do this all the time.
Okay. Therapy session for me coming soon. And that was Say Grace. I hope you liked what you heard. If you did, tell a friend, share it on your social. It's on all the major platforms. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.